Good morning or good afternoon, whatever time you guys are listening to us. Welcome back to another edition of the Layman's AI podcast. I am Adam,
And I am Brian.
and we are here to bring you episode 35, which we're pretty excited about, as we're excited about all of our episodes. But episode 35, we thought we would take a moment to kind of not necessarily pause, but to talk about who the big names are and the big players in AI. And
Mhm.
try to break down so that you guys have an understanding of who's who, what's the name of the company, what's the name of the AI tool, perhaps who's the name of the CEO, and how a lot of these guys are connected to one another.
Mhm.
Kind of like a fancy mini series or with a little bit of drama here and there, and a little bit of like I don't want to say mob movie, but there's some
Mhm.
interesting connections here as we dug into this, isn't there,
Yeah,
Brian?
it's starting to get into soap opera territory almost
I would
with a
agree.
few of
Yeah.
these because it's getting interesting. And I think we decided to do this episode mainly because we talk about all the products and everything. We throw the names around and
Mhm.
all that, and there's a business behind it. And what is the business behind it? Because I feel like that's kind of an important thing to talk about, is because once you start using, ChatGPT, Copilot, Gemini, Grok, Claude and everything, you have to wonder, okay, who are these people? Like, who's behind this and everything? And it actually gets pretty interesting once you start to dig into it. And I feel like, yeah, kind of learn a few things once you start digging into it and kind of
Yes.
peeling back the layers and everything. But a lot of interesting stuff here.
There is, and there's some interesting connections too. And we're not going to dive into all the unique relationships, but we're going to be talking about things like interconnectedness and lawsuits, and how one started. And we may even be talking about a little bit of fundraising with some of these things. And we're also going to be discussing where we think they might be going in the future, because that seems to be a key player with how these guys are
Hmm.
interacting with one another. It's whose thoughts are headed towards where in the future, because we have a name on here that you may not even know has AI, and has recently been a big hitter in AI, and that's Apple. And we'll get to them when
Hmm.
we get to them. But Apple was kind of like a slow comer in the game. And they just did something to kind of up their game, and it is reaching out to a different competitor. So
Yeah.
it's going to be interesting, some of these interconnectedness that we've discovered, and some of our listeners probably already know a couple of these, but we thought we would go through it with everybody and try to give you the layman's understanding of it.
Yes, definitely. So yeah, let's get right into the first one.
Let's do it.
Probably the one that's on the tip of everybody's tongue and what people think when they first think of AI, OpenAI,
Yes.
ChatGPT, CEO Sam Altman,
Hmm.
and this is sort of the one of the original players in everything
Yes.
within the industry and what have you. And it's kind of interesting. This actually started as a nonprofit, uh like kind of OpenAI is in like developing like AI chatbots and what have you. And I had to check it out again, and they have actually restructured to a for-profit entity. So
Okay. Okay. We
it's
were confused about that. All right.
yes,
So
I
they have.
did kind of go through that. So it's actually a hybrid model. I did do a little Gemini search for
Okay.
OpenAI. So we're using one AI to search another AI, which I find kind of interesting. But either way, there is the for-profit arm, that is the OpenAI Group PBC, which is the Public Benefit Corporation. And this is sort of their kind of for-profit arm. I'm not really, it doesn't really go in too much detail. I can't really tell you everything, but they also have the foundation, which is the nonprofit arm, but it does kind of run, I think it says here 26% equity stake in the for-profit company,
Oh,
which is really kind of confusing. We would need a business degree to really understand it, to be honest with you.
I wonder what Punk number two is up to right now as we're doing this. For those of you who
Nah.
remember earlier episodes, a little mutual friend of Brian and I, who's in the business world.
Yeah, he does accounting work. He doesn't do business work. But
That's
either
right. His
way,
job's going to be taken away by AI. I hope he's listening.
yeah, maybe. But yeah, it's kind of an interesting one right here. And uh, kind of an interesting fact also is they're kind of teetering on relevancy now that all the
Yes.
other
Yeah.
all the other players have started getting involved in everything, and they're spending a lot of money, and
Hmm.
investors are starting to re kind of ask, "Where's my money?"
Yeah.
Sort of coming
It's
back with a lot of AI.
it's getting interesting the more you and I have dove into this, and
Hmm.
I'm glad we dove into this week because it kind of reiterates what we talked about in the past, how we really felt, at least I did, ChatGPT was kind of on the forefront of innovation when it came to AI and LLMs.
Hmm.
And, I don't want to keep beating a dead horse, but it seems like now they're kind of playing catch up and they're still holding on to that number one. They are definitely, our research has shown us ChatGPT is clearly the most referenced AI tool
Yeah,
when it
it's the
comes
most
to
used.
AI. It's the
Yeah,
most it is the number one
ChatGPT.
name.
Yeah.
It's the name. It's the brand.
Hmm.
It's also unfortunately and fortunately at the same time. Unfortunately for them though, they've dealt with the most lawsuits against them, and there's an
Hmm.
open lawsuit right now with another key player that we're going to talk about a couple steps from now. So there's a lawsuit there going on. So ChatGPT very popular, but we did predict in our 2026 that by the end of this year, we believe that Google's going to be the
Hmm.
forefront of the AI race. But never count out ChatGPT. The Lord
Yeah.
knows they've had some great innovations over the years, and sometimes when they respond to making an update, it's a very good update. So when we thought Google took the lead, when they responded with Sora 2 and some other tools like ChatGPT 5.2,
Hmm.
it was a good response.
Hmm.
But you don't want to be in the response when you've been the one doing the innovation where everybody was trying to catch up to. I used
Yeah.
to tell everybody if you follow college football, uh, ChatGPT was what Alabama was. They
Hmm.
may not have always been number one, but it was kind of the program you were chasing because they were the constant winners or the constant one everybody was looking at.
Yeah.
And now in college football, I think Alabama has kind of fallen off a little bit from what they were.
Hmm.
Let's be honest, they have fallen off from what they were. The Big Ten's won three national titles now in a
Hmm.
row. So Alabama's fallen off. That's what I think is happening to ChatGPT.
Yeah.
Their OpenAI and ChatGPT are currently falling off, and there's other factors impacting things,
Hmm.
including finance. That's a lot bigger than we realized. And I don't want to use this whole episode to equate everybody to a college football program,
Yeah.
but there's definitely a shift, and some of that shift is because of money.
Okay, so going into our next player, Microsoft, which a lot of people typically they don't really equate Microsoft with AI as of yet, but they are a bigger player than most people realize.
Yeah.
Um, One thing we were just talking about ChatGPT and OpenAI. OpenAI actually has a partnership with Microsoft,
Yes.
which a lot of people are starting to find out, and that's creating some jealousy. We'll get to that later. But they are one of the biggest investors. Actually, I'm looking at some of the stats right here. They are the largest investor in OpenAI's for-profit arm, having about a 27% ownership stake within the ChatGPT OpenAI world.
Wow.
Yeah, and if you know anything about stock purchases and any kind of ownership like that, that is a major stake right there. And I think this is setting up for something bigger there, because it almost seems like we were talking about OpenAI kind of has some struggling a little bit. Is a merger possible? I mean, I'm wondering if Microsoft could potentially absorb OpenAI.
I think it's realistic as I recently heard a stat, and
Hmm.
I don't remember the exact numbers. I know I heard it off of another AI podcast that it's a little bigger than ours. I mean, they have something like 1 million followers, but we're getting there. We're
Hmm.
getting there.
Yeah.
But it was a recent stat along the lines of that ChatGPT, or excuse me, OpenAI is essentially losing money each month. That's why they need to fundraise,
Hmm.
fundraise, fundraise. And they're up against competitors who have a ton of capital laying around.
Oh
And
yeah.
we all know that Google's got a lot of capital laying around, but we also know that Microsoft has a lot of capital laying around.
Yeah, they're a big
Yeah.
player. I mean, you buy a computer, what is it? Windows. They're
Yep.
they're still there. I mean, everybody's got a computer,
Still there.
and
Still relevant.
hmm
Extremely relevant. I know there's Google. I'm a
hmm
Google guy when it comes to my docs and my Excels and all
hmm
that stuff. But and even I even have Google and I'm using the Microsoft language.
hmm
That's how good Microsoft is.
Yeah,
Uh, and to
definitely.
talk a little bit, piggyback on Copilot, what you were saying earlier, we did research, and Copilot is the most readily available tool that doesn't get used by people because they don't realize they could use Copilot with the stuff that they have with Microsoft.
Yeah, it's very interesting.
Yeah.
Full disclosure, I use Copilot to generate the images for the thumbnails. I think I mentioned it before. It does have an image generator. It's not as great as some of the other ones, but I like it for minimalist imaging.
Hmm.
For some reason, it does a really good job at that task right there.
I agree.
So it kind of found its niche and everything. But I know my laptop at work, I actually have a Copilot button. You hit the Copilot button and it brings up Microsoft Copilot. And we've done a few episodes with Copilot here, our Christmas episode recently that we mentioned, and we both like thought it did great, and we're kind of wondering, why aren't more people using this? I mean,
So
I'm just kind of wondering.
since you brought that up, I in my current place of work, my real job, this is just a hobby for me. But in my real job, I recently did a training on communication, how educators can communicate with stakeholders, including parents and other people. And as a result, I showed them that we have Microsoft Outlook and I showed them
Hmm.
how to use Copilot to set up your emails. And when we did that, we went over how it was tone, and we went over how Copilot can change the tone of an email for you to make it more
Hmm.
professional, more manual. And a lot of our people were like, we didn't know we could even use this. And it's literally sitting right up there on the top of the screen. It says Copilot, just click it and go.
Hmm.
And I was excited to hear that. So I'm glad to hear that like we're starting to realize we can use Copilot. There are uses for it, not just
Yeah.
calendar, but there's other uses too, like even within Word. So it's okay.
Yeah, definitely. And, kind of piggybacking off of well, not so piggybacking, but we mentioned Copilot uses a GPT model for its LLM and everything. We actually I shouldn't say we, OpenAI actually uses Microsoft Azure for its API workloads, which basically, if you don't know what an API is, I'll explain that for the layman's term.
Thank goodness, because
Um,
I don't know what that is.
Yes, it's basically a data interface, essentially. Here's a kind of a metaphorical explanation that Gemini came up with. Let's say you go to a restaurant, you are the diner at the restaurant. And the kitchen is the server. That's where you get the food. And that's what we would equate that to data, essentially. You sit down at your table, you want your data or you want your food, essentially. The waiter is the API. The waiter sits there, finds out what food you actually want. It goes into the kitchen and requests the data server saying, I want this food or I want this data. The server prepares the food or the data for you, and the waiter brings you the client or the app that you're working on um, to, consume the food.
Okay.
So that's
All right.
it, in layman's
Hopefully it didn't
terms.
hallucinate.
Yeah, in layman's terms, that's what an API is, and it uses like computing uses it all the time. Like if you're using any kind of app on your phone, you're using you're calling an API. Essentially, you're like that's an API, and you're calling up the server and everything. It basically serves as a middleman. So that's kind of essentially what an API is, and uh, OpenAI has that partnership with Microsoft to give its data, which kind of really intertwines these two together, which is a pretty intense partnership here.
Well, it's a pretty important partnership, especially if there's
Hmm.
ownership at stake.
Yeah, definitely.
Um, and again, I want to just reiterate this one more time. We were just speculating that there might
Hmm.
be a merger. We're not saying there's going to be, so please don't put
No.
any of your personal finances betting on that or anything like that. Don't go on
Yeah.
Polymarket and start
Yeah.
betting just because two guys were having a good conversation. But
Yeah,
um,
definitely.
yeah, don't
That's
do
just
that.
kind of
We'll do
yeah.
that, but you don't have to, our listeners. Okay.
I mean, that was just kind of my thought because they're so intertwined together already. It's kind of like, Microsoft is they're not the cool kid on the block anymore. You remember the 90s. They were like the hippest thing in the world.
They
Like
were,
everybody loved it.
except when the CEOs all did that dancing thing on stage. That just couldn't have
Yeah,
gone worse for
once
them.
they did the Windows 95 launch
Yes.
party and all started dancing, you kind of wonder why they did that. Look, Start Me Up.
Yes,
I
please.
can't listen to that song anymore.
If you don't know what we're talking about, pause our episode, take 2 minutes, two total minutes to
Hmm.
put Windows 95 launch or Windows launch start me up.
Yeah,
And I'm not making fun of those guys. They're all wealthy. They all did great things for the computer industry and the
yeah,
tech
they have more
industry.
money than both of us combined.
They do, but they can't dance worth of beans and they have no
Hmm.
rhythm. And that just makes me feel good as a layman to know that, like,
Yeah,
I
exactly.
got better rhythm than they do.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
But like, and anyway, like to go back to the point, they're not the hip kid on the block anymore, and OpenAI is the hip kid on the block, or they're kind
Hmm.
of running out of their, hip kid on the block phase in a little bit. So, I mean, it almost seems like the more they start to work with each other and more get into more business together, you never know.
Yeah.
But anyway, those are two players in the game.
Two players,
Uh,
common interest, working together a
yes.
little bit here and there.
Exactly. And now, what's the next player? Google.
Let's go
I
to a
like,
competitor and talk about Google. Yep.
oh yeah, let's talk about Google. Everybody
Hmm.
knows Google. They won the search engine wars. I remember we
Hmm.
used to sit around saying, "Who's going to win? Yahoo, Google, Ask Jeeves, or
Ask
Dogpile?"
Jeeves.
Yes, or Dogpile. Like a lot of people don't remember Dogpile,
That one
but
doesn't ring a bell.
yeah, safe to say Google won that one.
Yeah, safe to say. Yeah.
Because they're masters of it, and Gemini is their model, and they have that going very well. It seems like they were a little late to the game compared to OpenAI.
They definitely hit some of the hurdles in the
Hmm.
race. If it was a 100-meter sprint, excuse me, 110-meter hurdles,
Hmm.
they were definitely hitting
Hmm.
hurdles in the beginning portion of this. They definitely got a huge backlash with the image generator where that was coming out with like for example, get me a portrait of George Washington, and George Washington was African American. I know we've said this more than
Hmm.
once, but they were definitely hitting hurdles, and now they don't seem to be hitting hurdles. They seem to be gracefully sprinting and hurdling everything just fine.
Yeah, yes, definitely. And I think we had mentioned this before. I know I had mentioned this. They had the infrastructure ready for AI before it became the
Hmm.
thing. Because a Google search is basically one of the early forms of AI, if you think about it. Like you type in, I want to search this, and it runs through the internet, like trying to find this, that, or the
Right.
other. And they had the Google searches down. Like everybody does a Google search. Like Google search became a verb almost.
Hmm.
Um, it's kind
Right.
of
Good. I mean, look,
yeah,
Kirk Cinetti, they said, Google me. The coach at Indiana at one point was like, I win, Google me. And everybody
yeah.
knows what Google me means. It means look me up.
Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely. And they had this infrastructure ready to go, and AI became a big thing. OpenAI was one of the early adopters, and everyone started building the models and everything. And yes, Google had to catch up, but since they had that capital we're talking about, since they had that
Hmm.
infrastructure in place, since they had the talent in place, they're ready to go. They are definitely ready to go.
And they've got a little bit of a partnership of their own now,
Yes,
a
that brings
powerful
us.
partnership. So you got
Yes, brings us into
OpenAI's
our
got
next
that little
player.
bit of Microsoft, brings us to our next player, but it also Google will now be integrated with or parts of Gemini will now be integrated with Siri on your Apple phones.
Yes, now the Gemini model is going to be powering Siri, essentially. And this is a big one
It's big.
because
It's big, all right.
I
Yeah.
mean, you think Apple and Google, those are probably the two biggest
Yeah.
names in the tech industry. I believe they surpassed Microsoft, both of them, as far as the big names in the tech industry.
I would have to agree. I mean, I'm sure there
Hmm.
may be some people that disagree with us expert wise. I don't know about finances and stuff like that, but
Yeah.
when it comes to name, product, branding, knowledge, even trust of a customer and loyalty of
Hmm.
a customer for crying out
Yeah.
loud, those are two big names that are competitors that are
Yeah.
coming together because of
Hmm.
AI.
Yeah, because I mean, you think about it, you buy a phone. Everyone asks, do you have Apple or Android? Android is owned by Google. Like those are like the two
Hmm.
operating
Oh,
systems on your phone.
I
And
mean,
now
it,
they're
it,
partnering.
and now they're partnering, and it's so important that you know the answer to that. I
Hmm.
actually saw that there was a young lady. when she goes on dating apps, she vets her dates prior to going out with anybody that I don't know how modern dating works. I'm really glad I'm married.
Yeah. Yeah,
But the
me too.
first question she asks, are you an Apple or an Android? And if they're an Android person, she will not go out with them.
Well, you know what? I will say I probably would be okay with that because if that's your criteria, that's probably not someone I would want to go on a date with. But like you said,
Are
thankfully I'm
you an
married and
Android guy? Are you coming out
don't
as
have
an
to play.
Android guy?
Oh, we're not going to discuss that, sir.
Oh, good grief. Good grief.
Yes, but I am a
I
Google
thought I
Pixel
knew
guy.
him, everybody. No.
I am a Google Pixel guy for my phone, but yeah, either way, this is like a very interesting kind of partnership, and
hmm
you have Apple had their own Apple Intelligence, like kind of their own Apple AI they started to like put together, but as we were talking about, Google was late to the game.
hmm
I think Apple was even more late to the game.
Apple was even more late. And I think Tim Cook, Tim Cook, he's the CEO. Yes.
Hmm.
Tim Cook's the CEO. He took a lot of heat over it because they did create an Apple AI division. Then abruptly, I want to say it was around summertime, they said, we're done. We're not
Yeah.
doing this right now. We're either going to pivot and go different directions, improve what we currently have, things along those lines. And
Hmm.
now it's looking like that may have been a really good idea, if not to use the term, but like to get into bed with Google.
Hmm.
I mean, are those two going to consolidate? No way.
Oh, that no
No,
government will approve of that. That would be
nor should
stopped
they. I
before
mean,
anything. Yeah.
you may have different political beliefs, but I think both sides of the aisle are like, that's not happening. That's,
Yeah, definitely. That would just be too much right there.
yeah,
But I mean, even OpenAI and Microsoft would struggle to get past an antitrust suit. But
absolutely.
yeah, but either way, Apple and Google partnering, this is going to be a very interesting one to watch, I think,
It does.
because
It is.
antitrust laws exist. And you just kind of wonder where are they crossing those lines essentially?
hmm
I mean,
I
that's kind of
mean,
what I wonder.
I don't think they are in this particular case. I think this is just
Hmm.
a pro business move,
Yeah.
and I'm okay with it. But this
Hmm.
does further add to Google's capabilities of being the AI innovator.
Yeah.
I mean, if there's a data component to this,
Hmm.
look out. It should just spur Google even more.
Yeah, definitely. And speaking of data, everybody has Apple CarPlay or Android Auto right now, where you plug into your vehicle and what have you. A lot of the car manufacturers, kind of getting off topic, but not really. A lot of the car manufacturers just kind of defaulted and said, you know what, never mind, we're not going to build our interface anymore. And they just let Apple and Google sort of interface
Yeah.
with their vehicles. And what well, manufacturers have recently found out is how much money is in that data
Yep.
that they're gathering. And they're like, hold on a sec, we want a piece of that pie. So now they're
I've
going to
heard
their
this.
own.
Well, I've also heard that they're going to start that some companies are looking at charging you a subscription to use your phone in the car for CarPlay if you're pulling up stuff like navigation.
Oh, yeah, this is going to be an interesting one.
It's
And
a good thing I know how
especially,
to read a map, and I still
yeah,
think MapQuest exists, and I
yes.
will go back to the old school.
I might pull out my paper map, but
Nice.
kind of getting off topic, but not really, because a lot of that data that they're using, that Apple and Google are, kind of harvesting your data and like all that money that the data is worth right there, that
hmm
is actually feeding their models
Yeah.
essentially too. So, that's where kind of these businesses start to outstretch into other things. Now the car companies want to use this data for their profits and everything. So
Right.
who knows what's going to come into that? Because I know, Tesla has their own thing, so they're going to have their own data. We'll get to them in a little bit, but it's going to be an interesting development to see where Apple and Google take this. In my opinion, very
Yeah,
interesting.
I agree. So
Hmm.
let's go to the next player who does not have any significant partnerships, but
Hmm.
what we've learned while gathering for this episode does have a lot of the talent from the two other competitors working for them now.
Hmm.
And that is Anthropic, who has in our opinion, the very underrated and somewhat underappreciated tool of Claude. And it's
Hmm.
funny because now Claude is kind of the hot topic right now because of Claude Cowork, which we brought up in last week's episode. Since the time of us bringing that up, it's becoming
Hmm.
more and more popular because it's a working agent that you can give access to your computer and limit its access so that it can't get to everything. But it is becoming a very popular tool in a short amount of time. Unfortunately, it costs an arm and a leg.
Yeah,
which is always a
definitely.
consideration. But Anthropic is really neat because what we learned while doing this, Anthropic is kind of I think, Brian, your analogy that you gave before the episode, before we started recording, was the tortoise and the hare race. You have
Yeah.
Google and you have ChatGPT sprinting those
hmm
hurdles. And you have Anthropic, who's definitely behind them, but it is
hmm
just gracefully going over those hurdles and
Yeah.
closing that gap at a slower
hmm
pace and making product that people want to use. And by the way, when you hear about things hallucinating and things that are, people complaining about things not working as well as they should, you don't
hmm
really hear Claude being brought up in that. Not as
Yeah.
much.
Yeah, you hear a lot of the other models being brought up, and they're
Right.
they're purposely slow to develop their model, I think. And I think
Hmm.
in the long run, it's going to be a good decision because everybody wants to push that model to the forefront. They
Yep.
just want to get that LLM out there. Claude just kind of sat back really slowly and said, you know what, we're just going to slowly develop and make sure that anything we add to our model is going to be quality. They went
Yes.
with quality over quantity and everything. And how should I say it? When you're using Claude for free, you hit your search limit and your data limit very quickly. I know when I before I started, excuse me, having my paid subscription, anytime I use Claude, I would hit it very, very quickly.
Yes.
And that always kind of frustrated me. But that's actually a good thing because now they're not wasting a bunch of computing power and everything.
Correct.
And, with OpenAI, with Gemini, you can pull them up right now for free and just start searching, searching, searching. And they're like every search you do costs that company some computing power. And, with Anthropic, they decided to put a cut short to that, cut that short, I should say, right away. And that may actually work for them in the long run as far as an investment is concerned.
I think so. And another point I want to bring up about Anthropic, what we've learned, Anthropic is very much concerned about consumer safety
hmm
when you're using this.
Yes.
They don't want you to become addicted to this. They don't want you to be reliant on this, lose your knowledge, anything like that. Not that the other ones are either, but I'm saying this. A lot at the beginning of the AI race, Anthropic had a name for itself, and it was a popular one. It still is. I mean, we're talking billions upon hundreds of billions of dollars worth of company.
hmm
Anthropic was the one when the safety engineers, I don't even know if that's the right term, when the people from OpenAI and Google were worried about what they were doing safety wise for the consumer. When they
hmm
left at the beginning, they went to Anthropic.
hmm
And I think there's something to be said there. And I am becoming a bigger fan of Claude. I know you're already a fan of it. I am
hmm
becoming a bigger fan of it as we move forward because I like what it's delivering.
Yeah, I think when you have kind of a satisfaction rate, I think when you're talking about user satisfaction, if you go by
Yeah.
percentage, Anthropic's user satisfaction is much higher than all of them.
Hmm.
The quantity, you're going to have more satisfied users with other models because more people use those. But Anthropic kind of went with quality over quantity. And I think when you talk about users, you're going to have a higher percentage of people who are satisfied with Claude as opposed to other models.
I agree.
But that doesn't mean that there aren't big players backing Anthropic. Um, Amazon is actually one of its biggest investors. Kind of an unknown thing. They've invested, I just did a little search, $8 billion, and their web services is their primary cloud provider right there.
So
And that's kind of an interesting thing right there.
I didn't know that. Now we're adding another layer of a deep pocket company in terms
hmm
of money is heavily invested in a Claude at this point.
Yeah, definitely. And
This is awesome. This is like you couldn't write a better story than this.
yeah, you're having a big web. Here's where the web gets interesting. Google has invested in about 14% of the company, and Anthropic uses some of their clouds for large scale model training. So Google is investing in Claude as well, and Anthropic, and it's just kind of interesting there. And they also have a partnership with Microsoft and Nvidia, like on a certain level. And now.
It,
Like you start to see this web here,
yeah, I
and
mean, is
it's
this
interesting.
capitalism at this point? Probably. I mean, but
It's
it's not
something.
socialism, that's for sure. But it's
Yeah, it's
weird.
something. Yeah, I mean,
This
it is definitely something here.
this is just like a weird web, and I feel like we needed a chart. I wish we had the computer know-how. We should have made a chart before this thing, like, hey, look at this. This is how all this is connected, like, that
Yeah,
we can go
definitely.
over. But
So yeah, now you see
man,
Microsoft is invested in both OpenAI and Anthropic, which like you would never have thought that because they have their own LLM, but Claude is a whole different animal right now.
mhm.
It doesn't do image generation. It doesn't do
No,
a lot of the other things. It does very specific things very well though.
Claude's smart. I feel like
Hmm
they're smart. They're like, you guys, there's plenty of image generators. We've mentioned it. Like, nobody talks about Leonardo. We
hmm
love Leonardo.
hmm
And that's a specific to image generation. That's fine. Claude
hmm
doesn't need that. It's
Yeah.
amazing. I don't want to sit here and make this like a Claude fanboy thing because I don't even
Yeah.
have a paid subscription for it. And but it was kind of difficult to find some negatives with Claude
hmm
when we were doing this. And I guess the only thing I would say is it's a little slow and doesn't offer what the other ones offer. So if image generation is important to you as a person or your business, a
hmm
marketing person, Claude's probably not your go-to for paid content.
Yeah. Yeah,
You're definitely
definitely.
looking at the other ones.
Yeah, and this is where it gets into what you want to do with AI. You really have to do
Hmm.
that kind of research right there.
So should
But
we talk
anyway,
about the next one, the bad boy of the group, if you will?
yeah, the Rebel Without a Cause, XAI, Grok,
XAI, which is Grok, and
backed
also
by the one and only Elon Musk.
Elon Musk.
Everybody knows Elon Musk, the richest man in the world, yada yada yada. But no, he XAI is sort of the kind of the rebel of the AI world as far as LLMs are concerned, and Grok is sort of kind of the bad boy of the bunch.
Um,
I would kind of equate to that.
I think when they innovate, it's purposeful
Hmm
and it's designed to move and it's designed to score high in the metrics that they use for scoring LLM products, which we're gonna do. We are committed to doing an episode on that in the future of
hmm
how this stuff's measured because it is on our list in the next 4 or 5. Every now and then we pivot and change the topic, but
hmm
this is definitely one of the things we want to say is Grok's a player and they've got
hmm
money.
Yeah.
You're talking the
Well,
Tesla money, you're talking the Elon Musk money. We all know we say the names, everybody knows who we're talking about.
yeah.
Interesting enough, in my friendship circle as well as my work circle, uh, Grok is becoming the most used AI tool that my friendship and as well as my
hmm
work is starting to use for day-to-day basis. It's becoming Grok.
hmm
And so when I watch them interact with it, I can see why. I
hmm
can see why. When you ask it to be precise and concise, it is precise and concise.
hmm
Uh,
Yeah, it's kind of interesting one right there because XAI or X, formerly known as Twitter, now that's just one company right there.
yeah.
And a lot of what they train their models on are conversations on X or Twitter or what have you,
Hmm.
which I find kind of I don't like it, but it could lead to some easier model training, but that's not always the best. However, I will say if you go back to our food episode where we were asking different models to do
Yeah.
recipes, it did the best.
It,
So
it did the best.
it was kind of interesting.
I think because Grok does that with Twitter, I don't know how to maybe gosh, I wish somebody who knew this could just explain this, but I think Grok connects the dots
Hmm
faster and can get you because if you remember from that episode, Grok was the one that gave us measurements that
hmm
laid it out like a cookbook.
Yeah, it was a cookbook
Prior to that,
page.
nobody else had done anything like that. Grok nailed that one, which was
Hmm
if you I don't even remember the episode. We gave it some funny things,
Yeah.
recipes to make out of. But Grok was the one that knew how to connect the dots and give us what the others were missing prior to us doing that. So I think when cases where Grok hits the dots and connects it, it's a very powerful tool.
hmm
It's definitely worth exploring. I will tell you, if you're doing inappropriate image generation, like making fun of your fantasy football group, not that anybody
hmm
here has ever done that,
Yeah.
that's probably the one you want to go to. Just saying.
hmm
Um, but again, deep pockets, kind of a loner, and suing OpenAI.
Yeah. This is kind of a personal thing, I believe.
Oh yeah, this is
Like
very
him and
personal.
Elon Musk and Sam Altman have a kind of a personal beef with one another. I should say. It all started when OpenAI was talking about going into a for-profit model, and Elon Musk did not like that because he was one of the early backers of OpenAI,
Hmm.
if you don't know this, and
Yeah.
he kind of got out early before it blew up. And I think he's still harboring some resentment to Sam Altman and himself for backing out so early because it just kind of doesn't sit right with him. And he has an infamous beef with Bill Gates as well. Because I
Hmm.
think Bill Gates shorted Tesla or something like that. I don't know all the
That's
details.
a yeah. This is a web, ladies and gentlemen, and we don't know
Yes.
all of the interconnectedness.
Hmm.
So there's definitely a beef there, without
Yeah,
question.
yeah, definitely. And he has an issue with both of them, so he's suing them for however amount of money. I
Uh,
really don't know.
Interesting enough, the grounds he's suing them on, it does look plausible that it could be a
Hmm.
legit complaint and lawsuit. So that's going to be interesting to see what happens with that over time.
Yeah, I'm not. I'm not fully convinced it's going to go through. I wonder how much of it is actual jealousy, versus legit grounds to
Well,
sue somebody.
the good news is we're going to find out because
Hmm.
what I've seen, there's something, and it has something to do with using an open AI model
Hmm.
that ChatGPT used to do and now they don't, or something along those lines. But initially, I had heard it was plausible and that there could be some ramifications for it. However,
Yeah.
either way, both companies have a little bit of money, but this lawsuit
Hmm.
is going to hurt. It's definitely going to hurt the open AI because we've already said
Hmm.
they're spending a lot of money. Now they got to man up for an expensive lawsuit. That adds
Yeah,
up.
and
Yeah,
that's when you wonder how integrated their partnership with Microsoft is going to come into play with this too.
gonna find
Because
out.
if Microsoft they got capital backing them
Hmm.
as well. So I
Yep.
mean this is a heavyweight bout right here, and this could go on for a while.
This may be a to
Um,
be continued conversation.
yeah, definitely. But the more it drags on, I would say that'll work to Google, Apple, and Anthropic's advantage because while they're beating each other up, the other th big three players are just growing. So
Hmm.
it'll be interesting to see like what comes up with this as far as where XAI goes and where OpenAI goes and everything.
Hmm.
But anyway, those are the major players within the game right now.
Yeah.
Um, Kind of going to some other ones here. Meta AI uses their Llama model and everything. And
Yeah.
if you
And
don't know
so
Meta, that's Facebook and Instagram
that's
and everything.
Mark Zuckerberg, ladies and gentlemen. So another name
Yeah.
you've probably heard of.
Oh yeah.
It's basically Meta is Facebook.
Hmm. Basically, yeah.
So there's money.
Um, Facebook is a part of Meta now.
Yeah.
It's just kind of interesting, but I don't really know how much it's used. To be honest with you, it seems like it's more used for Meta's products and not much outside of it.
I wouldn't be surprised if in the years to come we're saying the name Meta and Llama a little more. I don't think I'm not so sure Llama is like an LLM in the traditional sense. I don't have much experience with it, but let's be realistic. Meta or Facebook, it's a smart player.
Hmm.
So they could just be sitting back in the weeds like maybe Apple was and just doing their own thing. And what if it wasn't Meta trying to do the pushing the glasses at one point, the Meta or the Oculus, is Meta Oculus,
Yeah,
the
the Oculus,
virtual
that's a
reality
headset. Yeah, it's a
thing?
virtual reality and
Okay, maybe
everything.
that's the direction they're going in. I don't know a whole lot about it. I'm clearly
Hmm.
not as well prepared as I probably should be for this episode to talk about Meta, but when it
Hmm.
came to the big players and the stuff we were uncovering that was public, let's be honest, the first five names we named, there's a great story there. There's like a TV series written there, you know.
Yeah,
Then you
definitely.
got Meta over here. Yeah.
Yeah, but the llama model that Meta uses is actually used outside of Meta's products and everything. I just kind of did a little search.
Okay.
Goldman Sachs uses it for document review.
Oh,
AT&T uses it for customer support assistance. Shopify uses it for data
okay. So
insights and
those are some
everything.
pretty well respected
And
institutions there we've just named.
yeah, DoorDash uses it to leverages it to optimize delivery logistics,
Oh,
I should say.
so
Eh,
data.
Yes, and Washington Post uses it to ask the Post, and it uses Llama for that and everything. So, it is a major player in the game. They're not as they're a little more behind the scenes.
Yeah, it's
I don't really think they have much of an LLM or anything, but they're definitely not one to sleep on for
definitely
sure.
doesn't sound like they need an LLM to play around with to make money already because we all know Facebook and the data from Facebook is phenomenal in terms of
Hmm.
monetary profit and everything. So that's going to be interesting. Maybe that's a name maybe there's an episode in the future about Llama and Meta and what they do with their AI because it seems to be different than
Yeah.
the other big players.
Oh yeah, definitely. And yeah, it's definitely used a lot for Facebook everything. So but it's not really much of an LLM interface, but
Hmm.
it's kind of a different way to use it. So
Yeah.
definitely not one to sleep on because, as we know, Mark Zuckerberg's not an idiot. But one thing I will
Yeah.
say is I would like my Facebook feed to look less like AI generated slop and more of interesting.
Yeah. So, Mark, if you're listening right now, I'm sure you are.
Hmm.
Could
Oh
you do
yeah.
something about that? And also, like, I kind of like it better when it's my friends that are actually in my feed mostly and not advertisements to buy this or buy that. Just saying.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. But yeah, that would be an interesting one. But no, it's definitely kind of a background player, I'd say. But yeah,
Hmm.
definitely not one to sleep on or anything. Which brings us to the heart
The
of
heart,
the
the
AI business
I
and our
believe
final
we
point
called this
here.
the enabler,
Yes, Nvidia.
Nvidia.
Everyone's heard about Nvidia and everything. They are the ones that build the GPUs, the RAM, and all the AI chips that are powering these data centers
Yeah.
and everything. And they're sort of the hardware behind everything, and that is not something that can be understated because everybody's, wondering what's going on with these data centers. People are building more data centers and
Hmm.
everything, and the more we use AI, the more we're going to have to generate data, and Nvidia is very well positioned
Yeah.
to help power these and everything. So they might be sort of the sleeper beneficiary to all of these because while all of them are competing with each other, Nvidia is like, hey, I'll help all of you.
So, yeah, and that's my question here. We've talked about this web. It's all
Hmm.
interconnected.
Hmm.
Is Nvidia the spider that's making the web?
Um,
Maybe.
I don't know if it's the spider that's making the web. It might be if we're talking about like kind of a web, it's sort of where the webs are being built, I would say. Like, you have a corner in your house and everything, and the spider web is building this web and what have you. So
Okay.
it might be sort of the objects that this web is being built on,
Okay.
essentially.
I mean, it's
And
clear, and Nvidia is important to all the companies we've named so far.
oh yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
They're all using them. It's very how should I say? Um, uh, I don't know if I can really expand anymore or
Words are
everything.
escaping us tonight.
Yeah,
It's a
words
later
are
night than
escaping
normal.
us.
But with that being said, there's no doubt in anybody's mind Nvidia is a big player in this. And they have a huge say in how things
Hmm.
are rolling out. And it's obviously in high demand. It's a very valuable company.
Hmm.
I sincerely hope they don't get into partnerships exclusively with other AI companies, if that makes
Yeah,
sense. I would hope that the day would not come that NVIDIA has decided to exclusively only work with Apple and Google.
yeah. So.
I hope that
eh,
doesn't happen because I think we've really just accidentally stopped any AI race and have made one power source.
Yeah, definitely. And I just had to do a little search here. Just kind of a Gemini search. As of early 2026, they hold a 92% market share in the high-end chips or the GPUs used for AI.
So if I'm hearing you correctly, there's hardly any competitors at this time.
There may not actually be a competitor, to be honest with you. If they hold
Oh,
that market share right there, I can't really think of an honest competitor to that.
okay. So let's let's just put this out here. If anybody from
Hmm.
NVIDIA is listening right now and you're disappointed in the way you're being treated,
Hmm.
the Layman's AI podcast is valued at about $5, I think, the last time we checked. We'd be willing
Yes.
to talk to you and give you the $5 if you would help us to figure out how to build chips that are somewhat competitive with NVIDIA.
Yeah, because yeah, that is an interesting one because like kind of trying to wrap things up here a little bit. We talked about all these, models that are fighting one another, and who's partnering with who's like powering everything right there. But at the heart of everything, Nvidia is just like the actual player,
Hmm.
because while they're trying to justify, all these other companies are trying to justify investors to invest in their AI model. Nvidia actually has the product that is actually making a profit right now. Like they are the profitable product right now, which they just kind of were that sleeper hit, and now they're just now they're in a prime position.
And good for them.
Yeah, good for
So
them. Yeah,
good for
but
them.
anyway, any more final thoughts from you, Adam?
I would love to see this made into like an HBO TV series or like a Netflix TV series. This
It's it.
drama, connectedness. How did those phone calls go? Why is Elon mad at Altman?
Hmm.
I would love to see this. I think that'd be a great TV show. That's my final thought. So
Oh
that's
yeah, definitely. This is definitely an interesting one. But no, this was a fun one to talk about
it
because
was.
yeah, because when you get behind what's actually going on with AI, it gets very, very interesting. But either way, I'd like to give everyone a big thank you for taking your time out of your day to listen to us. My name is Brian,
And I'm Adam.
and you have been listening to the Layman's AI, and we will see you next time.